Hey guys, welcome back. It's me, of course, Faith. And this is going to be a request, of course. Now, this request was made for last week. So this would have been for February the 19th through the 25th. Of course, I've put up a new request post for February the 26th through March the 4th. So make sure you drop your request on that particular post in terms of what you want to see from me for that particular week. Okay. The requests are open. So whatever you request, that is for you. And whatever gets the most likes, that's what I will be doing. Okay. Now that post will get taken down around 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock ish on Saturday. Okay, so that I can prepare for what we're going to do for the week. But like I said, since Instagram requests are different from YouTube requests, this has been requested for the Instagram people. And we are going to be doing none other than, or I'm going to be doing none other than Monique. Now, this isn't going to be a super in-depth reading whenever it pertains to her particular chart. I would just look at a few aspects, look at a few things, pretty much like how I do on the YouTube. Now, if you want to see other celebrity or natal chart readings, I did a few on pioneers in the civil rights movement. So Rosa Parks and Malcolm X are up. I enjoyed the reading, but of course I'm going to enjoy them because I did it. But you guys can enjoy them as well. So you can go to my YouTube channel and you guys can look up that and watch it as many times as you would like. Now, starting off when it pertains to Monique. Now, she is a sun in Sagittarius, as you can see right here on the 18th degree. Now, we will get into degrees in just a second. But first, before we do that, I want to take a look at her birthday. Now, you guys know how I feel about the day you were born, the actual day that you were born. You know, the zodiac sign at this point is just for research purposes. But for me, because I like numbers and numbers carry vibrations, I like to look at the numbers most of all. Okay. Even if I don't get the aspects 100% right, I'm going to get the numbers. Okay. So Monique was born on the 11th. Now, the 11th we know is, or the number 11 is a master number, right? But since we are talking about breaking things down and making them simplified, we want to break down the number 11 here, the day that she was born. We want to break that down to the number 2. No, I don't want to use the highlighter, but maybe another time. Okay. We're going to break down her number 11 energy, the day that she was born. We're going to break that down to the number 2. Now, based off of my numerology guide, the number 2 is tied to the moon, right? 2 and 7 are moon energies. Okay. But also to add on to this for my numerology guide, the number 2 is also tied to the energy of Aquarius. Now, the stigma of Aquarius is of course, what? The humanitarian, the scientist, the inventor, the musician, the author. I believe acting is involved in Aquarius energy as well. But like I said, since we're breaking this down and simplifying, get to the number 2, we have, again, moon field energy. So we're going to go directly to her moon. Now, of course, I don't have the exact birth time for her. But based off of the data that we have in front of us, she has moon in Aries in the first house. Now, we know, naturally speaking, Aries is tied to the first house of the natal chart, right? So she has her moon in the house of self. Now, if you missed my video from 2 days ago, I broke down how moon is tied to your personality. So before we dig a little bit deeper into her numerology tied to the number 2, let's talk about the personality. Now, we know Aries can be very action oriented. It can be, the entrepreneurship. It's also tied to doctors. Okay. It's also tied to fitness. Okay. But we know Aries can be kind of just like that. Ask questions later, act first, which can be dangerous depending on the situation. Now, sometimes this energy can get you out of some trouble because sometimes you need hair trigger reactions in order to get yourself out of a jam. So we could possibly give her that, where maybe in some sort of a way, she may be very observant possibly when it pertains to high stress, high level situations, like, if she was involved in a situation where you have to act quickly in order to save your life, we probably don't have to worry about her. Okay. Because she's probably halfway to the car before everybody else realizes, like, oh my God, we're in danger, danger, danger. Okay. So we can possibly give her that particular energy. But the thing is, and also first house, our identity. Now it is coming pretty close to her north node in Aries, which I will get into that in a second, because as I've said before on previous charts, your north node is tied to your purpose, whereas your Saturn, to me, is tied to your destiny. She has both purpose and destiny in her first house of self, just based off what we have here. Okay, so her purpose, her destiny is going to be very self-fulfilling. It may not necessarily be the whole, well, I'm doing this for this particular demographic, or I'm doing this for this particular group of people. That may not really be actually what is at the core of why she is doing what she is doing. Okay. So like I said, we're going to get into that a little bit more in just a second. But first, okay. So personality wise, and I should have possibly pulled up my chart on the screen so that you guys can see what I'm saying. But either way, so hold on, let me find it in my favorites. Okay. Another thing with the first house as well, it is the house of the brand ambassador, because think about it. You are the brand. The brand is your face. You know what I'm saying? Now it actually does. It looks like that her first house is like occupied by two signs, which it is. So in some sort of a way, she may have kind of like both qualities, kind of like having a battle there, Pisces and Aries. So can you imagine Pisces, the spiritual one? Okay. Pisces, the sometimes lost in the fantasy world, Pisces, the creative. Okay. Pisces, again, the musician. But then we have that fiery energy. So we have like Mars and Jupiter, because Aries is Mars, Pisces is Jupiter, but there's a conflict. So maybe in some sort of way, there's like a conflict of interest a lot of times when it pertains to her, but that may be her downfall. Too many conflicts of interest. So you know how a conflict of interest is. Like, well, you can't work at this particular company because your parent owns the company. That's a conflict of interest, kind of like that. It may be way too many situations playing out in that regard when it pertains to her life, where it's too many close calls in terms of, well, you can't really do that because they're too close to the situation. You can't, like I was like her husband is like her manager. That is probably a conflict of interest, to be honest. So we know conflict of interest. It's a reason why it's a conflict of interest, because it does not really benefit you. Because at that point, it's just too busy playing favorites, and you may not necessarily work as hard, X, Y, and Z. Okay. And it's interesting enough because her Jupiter over here on this side of the chart is in fall in Virgo in the sixth house. Now, the sixth house is tied to one's employees if you own a business. So it's not shocking that, and essentially, her husband is her employee. Now, her Jupiter is also making an aspect to her Venus in Scorpio, as well as her Mercury in Sagittarius. Okay. Now, I know I'm kind of all over the place. I didn't try to, but I just saw it. Now with her Jupiter making a square to her Mercury in Sagittarius. And to me, maybe I'm just feeling like Sagittarius can be maybe the comedian. Okay. I'm going to check the book of rulership, of course, to see if comedy is tied to Jupiter. But I just have a feeling that Sagittarius energy is like the comedian. Okay. But with her Mercury squaring her Jupiter at fall, and actually her Mercury is in detriment. Okay. Because we know Mercury is at home in Gemini, right? So anytime you have a planet that's at home, look across the street to the neighbor. That's going to tell you where the planet doesn't like to be. So if Mercury is at home in Gemini, the opposite sign of Gemini, or I would say the sister sign of Gemini, is Sagittarius. I mean, think about it. Literally, it's like, I like this sister, but I don't like that sister. Okay. It's like that. So she has two planets in fall making an aspect to one another. One is in the ninth house of publishing, to me, higher learning, godlike complex. And that's the issue. Too high on your horse, too high for your britches. Okay. But also we know the ninth house is also what? Foreign people, foreign places, foreign objects. Okay. Like I said, it's higher education. So, it almost gives me that vibe of somebody who's just like, I ain't got to go to school. I ain't got to go to school. What do I need to know? What are you going to teach me? So you become your own enemy, maybe in some sort of manner, because you're not listening, because we know Mercury is tied to intellect, Moon is tied to the mind. You need to exercise your intellect. It just can't be, oh, I know. Oh, I know. You don't have to tell me. So we may have somebody who it's hard for you to teach them or maybe even give them constructive criticism, because I don't know if Jupiter is criticism or that may possibly be the sun. Let's take a look actually at the book of rulership and see what criticism is tied to. Have to go back up to the seas. Unless it's moon, but maybe not. Let's see. It might not even be in here. Criticism is tied to Jupiter, ninth house, and the Mars. So again, this is someone who cannot deal when it pertains to criticism. Okay. And again, like I said, with her Jupiter, the planet of expansion, the planet of, we could say luck. Okay. With Jupiter. But I've talked about it before. Too much expansion can be a bad thing. Okay. Now it could be one of those things, I would say possibly for her, it's hard for you to convince her that she doesn't necessarily know a lot about this particular topic. It would be hard to say, I think you might be wrong, or I think you may be mistaken, or you may not have the right information. Good luck, because it's going to come back at you like, no, you don't know. I know. Okay. But it doesn't necessarily always mean it's a bad thing, because somebody with that particular type of energy, we could have someone who they stand firm. It's like, oh, I'm wrong and strong. Even if you put the paper in front of me that says you are so wrong, it doesn't matter. So you can say there's strength in that, in terms of like, I know I'm right. You can't tell me that I'm wrong because I know I'm right. So we can find strength in that. It depends on the situation, of course. Okay. Hold on. I have to find, and possibly maybe another thing as well. I think I talked about it. That was Mercury and Scorpio. But with Mercury and Sagittarius, I just get this feeling of very sarcastic. That energy where somebody talks to you and you're kind of just like, don't talk to me like I'm a child. We're the same age. It gives me that vibe in some sort of a way, but she may not be aware of it, because that's another thing as well that I was going to say. There may be a lack of self-awareness. And I can see that whenever you struggle to take criticism, there is a lack of self-awareness, because you're not possibly looking at, everybody can't be wrong. You're not possibly looking at the energy of, oh, you know what? Maybe they have a point. You may not like it, and that's fine. It's okay not to like criticism. Nobody wants to be criticized. It doesn't feel great. You feel like they're calling you a failure. You feel like they're saying, oh, you suck. But that's not always the case for everyone. Some people are legitimately trying to tell you, you got to clean it up. Okay. I don't know if at one point they told her that she had to clean up her language, like maybe very vulgar, but maybe it worked for her. Or again, with her Mercury being in the house of higher learning, we could say in some sort of manner, she's trying to get higher, right? Trying to possibly get higher upon the ladder. But as she makes that transition, they may have said, you got to clean it up. But then that's where the backbite may have came from. Like, clean it up. I think boop, 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 boop. But I was going to go to something. Yes, I was going to go to something, but I forgot. I didn't forget, but I'm looking at it now. This might be a Neptune thing. It's not in here. Wait, hold on. Maybe it's Li. Nope. Okay, I'll have to figure that out later. Because there was something I had on my mind, but I wanted to see if it was in the book of rulership before I just threw that out there. Okay, so back to her birthday. Okay. Now, oddly enough, as I've talked about before in previous videos, I've said, in my opinion, in order to get support from the public to where you can kind of like keep going, Moon, Jupiter, Moon, Midhaven contacts, in my opinion, there's an ease there, but also I can feel that combination can bring an ease of money as well, which of course, who doesn't love money? Who doesn't need money? But with those particular aspects, making a connection, it can be easier for money to come into you. Now, she does have her moon making a sextile to her midhaven in Sagittarius. So even though her personality, because we're back to the moon now, moon in Aries. So even though her personality may be possibly a little bit much, it may definitely be in your face. I think I talked about this before on another chart where I said, I think it was Queen Elizabeth, where it was the energy of rather be feared than loved. So it kind of comes across to me in that particular type of manner, rather be feared than loved. Okay. But let's go to the astrology and numerology guide. Okay. So here on my guide that you can see, we're going to the number 2. Now, remember, we're talking about the day that she was born. She was born on the 11th. So we're going to take that simplistic form and break it down to a number 2. So the highlights here with her are sharing. Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. Like, you know, and also with her moon being in the first house, she may share a lot about herself. And that may also be kind of like why the public, you know, draws into her because of what she is sharing her defeats, sharing her first. Okay. Or shit, just always having a story to tell. Okay. But we also do have a need to relate to others through, that's so weird. I was talking about that. A need to relate to others through feelings and emotions, diplomacy, cooperation. All right. Now, what's the opposite of Aries is Libra. Either way. Now, when it pertains to this whole cooperation situation, all right, there may even be some difficulties there, especially when we're talking about, again, publishing or we're talking about teaching. But that's the thing. She could possibly be a damn good teacher, but it's going to be based off of her defeats. It's going to be based off of her wins. It's going to be based off of her defeats. And again, like I said, that may be, it's not like a motivational speaker. I mean, if she wasn't going to be a comedian or an actor, she probably could make a lane for herself in the area of motivational speaking. Because whenever she gets in that particular energy, people listen like, wow, profound. But a lot of it is because she's just talking about things that she went through. Unfortunate things, good things, whatever the story is, she's letting you know that this is real life. So you have to give that to her as well. There is definitely motivation, you know, behind her personality. Okay. And a lot of it could be maybe her trying to see who else out there can relate, who else out there has been through what I've been through. Okay. I don't know. I'm getting like focus group type of energy, or I'm getting that vibe from her where she may be somebody where it's like she speaks out. And like, I'm looking for people who have had the same experience as me, because we need to take this to the company or whomever has mistreated me or wronged me. Let me know. Hit me up in the DMs. Give me an email, stuff like that. And maybe she kind of did that, maybe even whenever she was younger. Like she gets a crowd together, like an uprising, like we're going to march against the Capitol, you know, hopefully not, but we're going to march against the Capitol. But I would say she has that energy to get people behind her whenever we need to possibly go for an uprising. It's good quality. I mean, seriously, it is a good quality because not everybody can do that. It's hard to be a motivational speaker and not freeze and not be like, yeah, so on the 4th day, so, you know, you just can't say anything. But for her, it flows. Okay. So, and that's the thing, even though, and it goes back to me talking about her lack of self-awareness. So even though she may not necessarily be self-aware, it's who she is, like who she's giving you, even if it is lack of self-awareness, that's her. There is no Well, she could be different. Oh no. Oh no. That is her. Okay. All right. So back to the sheet. So the challenge is with her being born on the 11th, or because we're going to actually look at another energy as well. I put the number 11 in this sheet, and we're going to look at that in just a second. But the challenge is here with her on the number 2 day, hypersensitive, very defensive, confrontational, things I've already talked about before we even got into the meat of this particular guide. The lesson, you need to learn how to be more receptive. When I talk about the criticism, open up to what life has to offer, give more. But remember, I talked about how her purpose and her destiny are in the first house. So she's going to give, but it's only going to be to the benefit of her. You know how some people give and it's for the benefit of the group. But for her, when she gives, it's like, well, I'm doing this because it's really going to benefit me the most. Yes, we may have this uprising, and yes, we may possibly end up maybe changing something, but really, I just needed you guys so that it can mainly benefit me. So you have to be careful about getting used by her for her own agenda. You know, it's all so. Like I said, even though she has that skill and she has that power and stuff like that to gather uprising, you know, and to draw attention to the issues that companies may have, etc. The big picture is mainly just for her own benefit. You may not really get much out of it. Okay. And even after the fact, you may feel discarded. Like, wow, I thought we did this great work together. I thought we were having an uprising. Da, 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 da. And for her, it could be like, who said that? Okay. So, and maybe in some sort of a way, she may sometimes act like she doesn't know you, which can be difficult. Okay. So for her, I would say it's one of those things where you have to share because you genuinely want to share, not because I'm sharing so that it all can come back to me, so I can be the winner. In my opinion, again, with all that energy in her first house, I don't really think that she's a team player because the benefit is supposed to be more so her. And also, Aries can be controlling. Aries can sometimes be a bully. Okay. So it could be one of those things as well. She could be somewhat of like a bully, or her personality may have been shaped by her mother bullying her, because we also know Moon is tied to the mother, is tied to the womb. You know, it may be one of those things where maybe her mom was, you know, possibly trying to, you know, give her the axe whenever she was in the womb, but not in the way like having a ABORTION, but maybe more so in a way of like punching at it, you know? So the bullying energy is already starting before you've even exited out of the canal. And this may be a personality or an energy that has been like subconsciously programmed in her mind, but it wasn't her fault. But we are all responsible for our own healing. Because you came from a screwed up environment, it doesn't mean a screwed up environment has to come from you. You are in control of your mouth, of your life. I guess some would say your destiny. That is all on you. Okay. Yes, everybody has some crappy stuff that happens to us. Believe me, you. Okay. However, like I said, at some point, the self-awareness has to kick in and be like, you know what? I am not going to let this define me. I'm not going to let this define who I am. I'm going to be better. And that may be the difficulty. You get stuck in, I'm a product of my environment. I'm a product of my environment. And you go with that. It's only going to work for so long. Especially for her, it will only work in her youth. But as she get older, that's not going to work anymore, because before it was fine. People were like, oh, you're young, you know, give her time. But if you're still being the same way at 40 and 50 and 60, they're just like, no way. There's no excuse for it. So let's scroll on down to the number 11, which, as you can see, Scorpio energy highlights here inspiration, which we kind of already talked about that, motivation, spiritual will, magnetism, cooperation. So you see how she has cooperation in positive sectors on number 2, as well as the number 11 energy on our particular guide. Now we see the fears or the challenges here, when it comes to this 11 energy, which is tied to Scorpio: fear, emotional instability, indecisiveness. Learn how to lead others without the need to prove yourself or your self-worth. Things we've been talking about. Don't try to impress your personality on others. I talked about that as well. So let's go back to the chart. Now, I was talking to somebody the other day and I was looking at her chart, skimming over it. And I was just like, my God, how is she even an actor? Because I didn't see it. But if we go back to my theory, whenever it pertains to my theory is we're going to take the first letter of your name and we're going to see what your career could be. I'm not saying I'm always right about this, but it's been possibly like 90% correct. So Monique, letter M, is tied to Mars. Her Mars is in Aquarius. Aquarius in 11th house of what? Actors. Okay. And Aquarius itself is like actors, celebrity industry, party planning, etc. So there we go. But as you can see, we have Mars and we have Venus. Okay. Mars is making an aspect to Venus, but it's also making an aspect to our Sagittarius. I mean, just rough speech, rough communication. Okay. Maybe even rough to her supporters, maybe the same people that accepted the fact that you were young, you're going to make mistakes, it's cool. Maybe even rough to them. You know what I'm saying? Venus in Scorpio, which it would be at fall. Her Venus is, in detriment in Scorpio because Venus is at home in Taurus as well as Libra. So she has a detrimental Scorpio Venus. Okay. Now, in one of my other videos, I talked about how Venus and Moon to me are tied to wealth, big wealth. So for her, it's possible that maybe she thought being in the acting industry was going to bring her the mass amount of wealth. However, your Mars is squaring that wealth planet. So that may be another thing. We may have someone who's having a hard time. Maybe she made the jump. She made the change and they were just like, yeah, she probably thought, yeah, I know I'm going to get so much money by making this change when it pertains to going to acting. And it really just became her downfall because again, but it also could be a relationship because, Scorpio, intimacy, close relationships. So that's another thing as well. She may not really have a lot of close relationships with people in the acting industry, not in the way that she thought. Okay. What was I going to say next? I drew a blank. I haven't looked up any degrees, but we can look at it. Let's take a look at her moon in Aries. We'll look at that particular degree and we'll see what it says. Okay. By the way, if you guys want to look at degrees when it pertains to your birth chart, I have the PDF. I have the links, the websites that you guys can go to look at your own degrees in your charts. Good time, right? Also, by the way, I don't know I'm not sure if she is the eldest sibling because I believe the 11th house is also the house of older brothers or like older siblings. Okay. So I'm not sure if she is possibly like the oldest. Okay. She may even work with her brother if she has one, like her older brother, if her older brother, or if she has one brother, family member, something like that. I think it's a sibling that's in like the same career field as her. Maybe that was her shoe in. Maybe he was there first and he kind of like brought her in. Okay. Or vice versa. She may have came in and then she brought him with her. Okay. So, Aries, 21 degrees. We're talking about the moon sign. So her moon on the 21st degree of Aries, we have artistic, ambitious, or laziness, instability, disorderly nature. That goes right along with what I was already talking about. So personality wise, disorderly conduct. Think about it. You guys that probably went to school down south, you know about that disorderly conduct. Okay. It'd be on that interim report or that report card and they give you like a pass or a fail. Okay. You'll be quick to get sent to the office for disorderly conduct, but that may possibly be her disorderly conduct, especially when it pertains to her emotions. You're being out of order, ma'am. You're being like Iyanla Van Zandt, out of order. It's kind of like that. But she doesn't care because she's going to hold fast to who she is. And that's who she is. So you have to give her that. Okay. You have to give seriously, you have to give her that. Okay. Let's look at, I didn't talk about purpose of destiny. So purpose, North Node being in the first house. So we know her purpose is just going to benefit her. I really have I have a feeling she thought she was going to be way bigger than what she is because of her North Node being in her first house of self-employment, the brand ambassador, the entrepreneur. Okay. I don't know if she may possibly try to become that in fitness, because Aries is also fitness. Okay. So, it could be that kind of a change as she gets older as well, where she'll try to be a brand ambassador for fitness because it didn't necessarily work when it pertains to acting and stuff like that. Okay. It, I mean, I don't know why I'm kind of getting this energy as well. Like maybe in some sort of a context, it feels like, you know how some people motivate you by kind of like being mean and they think it works, but that may work for other people, but maybe not for the core of the group. It kind of gives me that, but it works for some people, So North Node, which we know nodes are always in retrograde. Okay. Her node is 25 degrees Aries. It says ambitious, great effect, which things we've already talked about. Okay. Now let's take a look at her Saturn. Saturn is destiny. Her Saturn is at 5 degrees Aries. Okay. So we know the 5th degree is tied to Leo. Leo degrees are 5, 17, 29. However, the more long-standing energy tied to fame or popularity could be seen from the 17, the 29, and the 28th degree. Okay. As you can see, even though the chart is not exact, ascendant on 17 degrees. Okay. Pisces, I don't know if Pisces would be considered. Oh, Pisces is film. I just thought about that. Because Neptune, which is Pisces' co-ruler, is film. Okay. So yes. But we know, Pisces is also like of course, spirituality, spiritual will. Pisces is also tied to the undoing, the subconscious, prisons, jail, charity. Maybe, which one was it? I forgot. Snap. Because there's a darker side and a lighter side of the occult. Okay. So that may possibly be her lane, like film, but maybe a little dark. Because think about it, 12th house is like a dark house. It's cold to me. Okay. Because think about it, you think prison is a vacation? No. So she may do really good when it pertains to those particular roles. And that may be roles she needs to stick in. Not the, not the funny. Okay. She wants to get somewhere, my opinion. Okay. But back to what I was saying, with the Leo degrees, we have 5, 17, 29. 17, 29 are more of like a long standing energy, as well as 28. For her, she has Saturn in 5 degrees, Aries. So it's like quick. It's like literally your 15 minutes of fame are up. And in a way, we could possibly see that a little bit when it pertains to the 5th degree. Now let's take a look at the 5th degree of Aries. We have undertaking, superiority, facing dangers. So we already know that. I already talked about that before, with that being in the house of self. So she is a danger to herself, if we're going to be honest, because of what I talked about before. Here, her Saturn is squaring her Mars. She fights, possibly. Boxing may be really good for her in terms of pent up aggression or pent up energy. Wine, no wine. I don't think she needs to necessarily do anything tied to wine. Okay, because was her 12th house lord would be Aquarius. Aquarius is what Saturn, as we can see. And Saturn, I just realized Saturn is at fall in Aries because it's exalted in Libra. So she has her destiny in the first house in fall in Aries. Okay, so say no to drugs, like I said, say no to wine, say no to smoking. It should be completely clean eating, etc. Otherwise, that's going to affect her, I would say, tremendously when it pertains to erratic behavior. Okay. It looks like her Saturn also is making a aspect to her Mercury. Malcolm X had the same energy as well, where I said he's brutal in terms of his communication. But the difference between Monique and Malcolm X, his purpose was to benefit his people. Hers is just for herself. But not saying that it can't change. Of course it could change. It's not set in stone. It could change. But with her, all that energy in the first, I'm not going to get my hopes up about her changing I'm just not going to get my hopes up. Okay. But anyway, so guys, this has been like a short kind of reading whenever it pertains to Monique and her natal chart. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Again, don't forget to leave your suggestions and I will see you guys later.